Band-Aids don't fix bullet holes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's one of those lines, isn't it? You hear it one time, and it's stuck in your head for, like, a decade.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was the caption on a million Instagram posts back in, 2015.
Exactly. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we aren't just talking about a Taylor Swift song. We're talking about Bad Blood. And, I want to approach this a little differently. Because when I look back at the 1989 era, this track, it kind of feels like the anomaly.
How so?
Well, it wasn't the best written song on the album. It wasn't the catchiest. In fact, a lot of critics, they absolutely hated it.
And that's the paradox we're here to unpack, right?
Yeah.
How does a song that critics called, I think petulant was one word.
Directionless.
Directionless.
Right.
How does that become a Grammy-winning, record-breaking juggernaut?
It feels like a glitch in the matrix. So to figure this out, we've pulled a massive stack of sources. We've got the original reviews from places like NME and The Guardian that were surprisingly harsh.
We also have the interview transcripts from Rolling Stone and GQ. That's really where the whole narrative got built.
Right. And we're even looking at some academic papers on feminism and celebrity culture to really understand the whole squad phenomenon.
I think the squad is key. But before we even get to these supermodels and the explosions, we have to look at the music itself, the foundation. Because Bad Blood really represents a very, very specific moment in her career.
The pivot.
The pivot.
This was the 1989 album, late 2014. This is the moment she officially, killed off the country music persona.
Completely. She traded the banjo for the synthesizer. She said she was inspired by late 80s synth pop.
Yeah.
And to make sure she nailed it, she didn't just hire a producer. She hired the architects of modern pop.
Max Martin and Shellback.
The Swedish heavy hitters.
Yeah.
These guys are basically scientists when it comes to crafting a pop hit. The executive produced the whole album.
But here's the thing that gets me. When you listen to the original album version of Bad Blood, the one that dropped before the famous remix, It's weirdly stripped back.
It is. It's really minimal. It's driven almost entirely by these, stomping, booming drums and these pulsing keyboards. It's aggressive, sure, but also kind of hollow.
The New York Times made this really specific comparison that I had never caught before. They said the drums sounded like Billy Squier.
The big beat, right. It's this classic rock track from the 80s that, funnily enough, became one of the most sampled drum breaks in hip-hop history.
So she's channeling that arena rock chanting vibe.
Exactly. NME called it a bitter stomp and said it evoked the Beastie Boys, which makes sense. It's really more of a chant than a melody.
And that simplicity was where the critics just dug in. I was actually shocked going back and reading how negative the initial reaction was.
It was so polarizing. So on one side, you had a publication like The Quietus enjoying the attitude. They called it sass and bile.
Mm-hmm.
They liked the aggression.
Okay.
But then you have Clash magazine. They were just brutal. They called it a litany of cliches set to directionless thumps.
Ouch. Directionless thumps. That's gotta hurt.
And the record called her delivery petulant. And, even today, when you look at retrospective rankings from Rolling Stone or Paste, Bad Blood is almost always near the bottom of her entire discography.
Musically, it just didn't have the complexity of style or blank space.
Not at all.
So if you're Swift and her team, you got this song that critics are calling the weak link. The logical thing to do is bury it, right? Leave it as an album track and move on. But she didn't. She made it the fourth single. Why?
Because the song had something the other tracks didn't. It had a narrative, a very public, very juicy narrative.
The feud.
Precisely. I mean, the lyrics are about betrayal. Did you think we'd be fine? Still got scars on my back from your knife. It's not subtle.
Not at all.
But she took it a step further in Rolling Stone interview in September 2014.
I remember this so clearly. She basically tells the interviewer, look, this isn't about a guy. It's about another female artist.
And she gave very specific details. She said this person was a close friend who tried to, and I'm quoting here, sabotage an entire arena tour by hiring people out from under her.
Which is brilliant because it moves the drama from a romantic breakup, which everyone expected from her, to a corporate dispute.
Yeah.
It's about business ethics.
It was a genius deflection. She told the press she wanted to clarify it wasn't about a boy to avoid the usual gossip, but really she just swapped one kind of gossip for another.
And it ignited a wildfire. Everyone immediately started trying to connect the dots to Katy Perry.
The touring history, the shared dancers, it all fit.
It fit perfectly.
Chuck Klosterman wrote a great analysis of this for GQ. And he argued that by being ambiguous, but also giving these very specific clues, she propagated the existence of a different rumor.
She gamified the song.
Exactly. You weren't just listening to a track anymore. You were trying to solve a puzzle.
That's marketing genius. But a narrative can only carry a song so far. If the music is just directionless thumps, people aren't going to keep listening on the radio.
And that brings us to the second pivot, May 2015. Swift decides to release it as a single, but she knows the album version isn't strong enough, so she overhauls it completely.
And in comes Kendrick Lamar.
Which at the time was a huge curveball. I mean, you have the polished princess of pop and the king of West Coast hip-hop who is fresh off releasing To Pimp a Butterfly.
It felt like two different universes just colliding. But it wasn't just him adding a verse, was it? The whole production changed.
Oh, it had to. Yeah. They brought in a producer named Ilya, and he didn't just polish the track, he modernized it. He added trap beats, those fluctuating hi-hats, these resonant kick drums.
Which was the sound of 2015. That trap influence was starting to take over the charts, and she just jumped right on it.
It gave the song the weight that the original was missing. And honestly, Lamar's verses did a lot of the heavy lifting. The Guardian called the collaboration a masterstroke.
They felt his verses were potent and sort of covered up the simplicity of the chorus.
Pretty much. And it worked. The remix shot to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100.
And here's a stat that just blew my mind. That was Kendrick Lamar's first #1 hit.
Wait, really?
Yes.
The guy who wrote All Right in King Kunta, his first #1 was a Taylor Swift remix?
It was, which just goes to show the sheer commercial power she had at that moment. The song broke the record for most single-week plays in the history of the pop songs chart.
Wow.
But let's be real. The radio play was huge, but the cultural explosion that came from the video, because Bad Blood wasn't just a music video.
No, it was a summer blockbuster.
Directed by Joseph Kahn, produced by Swift herself, it premiered at the Billboard Music Awards. Just the premiere itself was a statement.
And the aesthetic was this pure, like, neo-noir, Sin City, Tron, Kill Bill kind of vibe.
But it was the rollout that I found so fascinating. It was the birth of the squad.
The marketing for it was relentless. Every day, a new character poster would just drop on Instagram.
Oh.
And it wasn't just, here's Selena Gomez.
No, it was Selena Gomez's Arson.
Lena Dunham, Lucky Fiore.
It was like the Avengers. You had Gigi Hadid, Zendaya, Cindy Crawford, Jessica Alba. I mean, she was basically saying, look at my Rolodex. Look at the army I can summon.
The Washington Post commented on exactly that. They saw it as this display of raw power. It wasn't just about friendship. It was about status. She had the access to mobilize the biggest names in entertainment for a 4-minute video.
And the plot mirrored the real-life feud perfectly. Swift is Catastrophe, Selena Gomez is Arson. They're fighting together, and then boom, betrayal. Arson kicks her out of a skyscraper window.
Band-Aids don't fix bullet holes.
Exactly. Catastrophe survives, creates this training camp for supermodels, and comes back for revenge. It ends with this huge face-off in a burning London. It broke the Vivo 24-hour viewing record with like 20 million views.
But this is where the conversation gets a little more nuanced. Because while the video was a massive hit, the critical analysis of the squad wasn't all positive.
Yeah, this is where the whole Mean Girls critique started to come in.
It was divisive. So on one hand, you had Time magazine praising it. They saw it as Swift finally shedding her victim narrative. She wasn't the girl crying with her guitar anymore. She was an action hero.
But on the other hand, isn't there something a bit exclusionary about it?
That was the big debate. The Irish Times called it a cult of personality. The Times compared it to a mean girl-style clique. And the main criticism was that this brand of feminism felt like a VIP section.
Right.
Some scholars argued that it represented a feminism that's only accessible if you are, wealthy, famous, and conventionally gorgeous.
It sort of reframed female friendship as a weapon. You're either on the team or you're the target.
And there was an ironic twist that a literature scholar named Hannelore Roth pointed out. In the video, Kendrick Lamar's character is named Welvin the Great. He's basically the boss. He sits behind the desk while all the women train.
So you have this supposed anthem of female empowerment, but a guy is still technically in charge.
Roth's argument was that by structuring it that way, the video actually replicated the patriarchal structures it was trying to fight.
Huh.
So, it's a complicated legacy.
But complexity didn't stop the awards. It won the Grammy for Best Music Video. And it saturated the culture so deeply that we started seeing parodies everywhere.
You made it when How It Should Have Ended does a version. Bad Blood.
A classic. But there were serious parodies too, right?
There were. There was a really notable one about the UK tampon tax, using the song's aggressive fighting spirit to protest taxes on sanitary products, which shows the song had crossed over from just being a pop tune to being like a vehicle for protest.
Speaking of different versions, we have to talk about the covers. We have to talk about Ryan Adams.
Ah, the Ryan Adams 1989 cover album. That was such a strange, interesting moment in music history. He covered the entire album in the style of Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska.
So he took Bad Blood, a song that is defined by its huge production and booming drums, and just stripped it completely naked.
Turned it into this alt-country folk pop ballad. It's melancholic, it's sad.
I have to say, I actually kind of liked it. It felt honest.
Well, critics were split. Spin actually preferred it to Swift's version. They said he stripped away the sneering obnoxiousness of the original and found a real song underneath it all.
But Billboard disagreed.
Billboard thought it was the worst cover on his album. Their argument was that Bad Blood relies so heavily on its sonic distinctiveness, the bombast, the production, that when you take that away, there's not much of a song left.
Which brings us right back to the original question. Is Bad Blood a good song, or is it just great production?
That is the enduring question, isn't it?
So fast forward to 2023. We're in the Taylor's version era. Swift is re-recording her catalog. We get 1989 Taylor's version. And the big question was, does Kendrick come back?
And he did, which was amazing. Swift called it surreal and bewildering that he agreed to re-record his verses almost a decade later.
So did the re-recording change our understanding of the song at all? Or was it just a copy-paste job?
Musically, the arrangement was almost identical. She wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel. She was trying to devalue the original master. But a lot of critics noticed the vocals had shifted.
Better, worse.
Just different. Some felt her vocals sounded angrier, maybe with more depth and maturity. Rolling Stone UK called it astounding. They felt the added years gave her voice more authority.
But Pitchfork was still not impressed.
Pitchfork remained critical, yeah. They called the re-recording bratty and boring. Their argument was basically that a woman in her 30s rehashing a high school-style feud from her 20s it didn't land the same way.
That's a fair point. The anger of 2015 might not fit the vibe of 2023, but the fact that we're still talking about it and that the re-recording still did massive numbers, well, it proves the strategy worked.
Absolutely. If you zoom out, Bad Blood is just a masterclass in narrative control.
So let's recap the journey. We started with an album track that most critics called the weakest link on 1989.
And through a strategic remix with the hottest rapper in the world.
A weaponized marketing campaign with a squad of supermodels.
In a music video that was basically an action movie.
She turned a B-side into a cultural phenomenon. She didn't just release a song, she created an event.
And it highlights her ability to reinvent her own image. In the You Belong With Me days, she was the underdog on the bleachers. With Bad Blood, she became the cheer captain and the football team and the owner of the stadium.
Right. It was this aggressive declaration that she wasn't asking for permission anymore.
And that transition is what the 1989 era was all about.
So here's a thought to leave you with today. We live in an era now where squads are digital. You have influencer houses, collab videos, public beefs played out on TikTok duets. Did Bad Blood write the playbook for how modern celebrities fight their battles? Is it less about who has the better art and more about who can mobilize the biggest army of influence?
That is the million-dollar question. It certainly feels like it changed the rules of engagement.
Something to think about the next time you see a carefully curated group photo on your feed. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.